Shop. Thank you so much for being here. Just give yourselves a hand. Just coming out today and celebrating 10 African Women's Day at the Dock. Again, thank you so much. My name is Donna Craddock. I'm one of the co-owners of the Dock Bookshop. My sister Danya, she so badly wanted to be here, but we got another event in Dallas at the Jazz Festival, so she's holding that down. So she sends her love, and she just wish she could be here. Um, so I just wanted to quickly, and for those who don't know, the Doc Bookshop, we're an indie bookstore that's been around for 17 years. And we celebrated 17 years in May. And we just do a lot of cultural things here. We love community, we love culture, we love books. And so one of our main events that we do is the Trinity River Book Festival that's coming up in September. So mark your calendars for that. We're going to need some runners. We have a read to run or run to read, 5K, 1K. We'd love for you to be a part of that. Just get with me and I can give you more information about that. I'm going to do a quick rundown of some books. And I just want to, let me just say that we have been, Black August is is a wonderful time of the year, but it's hard on our shelves, okay? So a lot of the books, we have not copies. We're out of a lot of books, but we're going to get some in. But if you're interested in a book, we can order it for you, okay? So, like for example, one good read when you're dealing with women is Hood Feminism. This is a popular title. I'm out of it, of course, but if you want one, you just order it and I can call you when it comes in. But this is a popular title. And then this is also an interesting one. This is dealing with the women of Cuba during the Revolutionary War. This is another book that you can check out. Also, another popular one is Ivy Lord's book, Sister Outsider. We get a lot of requests for this book, so make sure you have this in your library if you don't. And then, of course, the brave, audacious Asada Shakur. We have her book. This is a must read. Okay, whenever you're dealing with Pan African women, uh, she's definitely needed to be on your shelves. And then, of course, Winnie Mandela. She has so many books, but about her, and she's written a few. But this book is the one that we have available today. The Cry of Winnie Mandela, and is dealing with her time when she was in prison. And then we have, and I love her, Mama Petit, with the Plating of the Gardens. We have, this is a beautiful children's book, so just wanted to share that with you. And then, of course, the other icon is Miriam Makeba, the wonderful social singer. Got her book. And then we have some, I'm not going to go through all of them, but I couldn't stop, so I had to stop myself, right? But for fiction, Yagazi, I don't know if I'm saying this right, so if someone know how to say it correctly, please correct me. I say Yagazi. I don't know if that's right or not. But anyway, this is a great book. We read this for our book club. And yeah, it deals with being on the continent and then coming to America. Is really interesting. So good read. And then this one is The House of Stone. This book is by, I believe she's from Zimbabwe. This is a fiction book. Okay. And then this other book is called Sankofa. This is a popular book as well. And I believe she's from Nigeria. Okay. All right. I'm not going to go through all these books. Okay. I only got 5 more. Okay. Now, this is a real popular one. Sophia Sinclair, How to Save Babylon. Her memoir. She's from Jamaica. She deals with her story being part of the Rastafari. And, oh, this is an important book. This one, Vanessa Nakati from Uganda, she's dealing with environmentalism. So if you're interested in that, she's a great read as well. And then this is a memoir from Nadia Owazi from, where she's from. Let me make sure. I don't want to get her wrong. Okay, she's from Nigeria as well. Okay. All right, so these are summaries that we have for you. We'd love for you to check them out. And of course, we have this one. This is the new release that came out this year, A Praise for the Motherland um, by Luke Papira. So just want to share some reads with you all. And again, thank you all for being here. Who do I turn it over to? I'm not sure. Who's up? Who's gonna give us the agenda for today? He's got some wonderful things planned. I know we're gonna do a video. We're gonna do a panel. Yes. Thank you for coming. You're beautiful.
Great to meet you.
Good to meet you.
Thank you so much, everyone, for joining us today. My name is Suad Abdulaziz, and I'm going to be introing and talking about kind of a little bit of history around Pan-African Women's Day. And then I'll pass it off to our MC, our main MC, Desiree. Um, so Pan-African Women's Day honors the struggles and achievements of African women everywhere and inspires women to continue the struggle. Pan-African Women's Day was established at the All-African Women's Conference, which was held in July of 1962 in Dar es Salaam, in what was then Tanzania. The conference featured women delegates from 14 independent African countries and 10 national liberation movements dedicated to the future completion of the liberation of Africa while promoting women's active roles in revolutions. In 1962, many African nations were fighting for independence from colonial rule, and both the conference and the Pan-African Women's Organization that grew out of it were historically significant achievements. The All-African Women's Conference was the first continental-wide meeting organized by and for women. And in demonstration of their understanding of Pan-Africanism, they included African women from all over the diaspora. And at this conference, Pan-African Women's Day was declared as an annual observance to be celebrated each day on July 31st. Pan-African Women's Day is deeply rooted in the struggle for Africa's liberation from colonialism, from imperialism, and from patriarchy, and for the full participation of women in these processes. And following the great example set by these revolutionary women, we continue with this important tradition. So on that note, I will pass off to Desiree to intro what will be the panel that we'll have immediately after this.
Hello, everyone. Yes, we'll be going into a panel. I'm Desiree. And so first person I would like to introduce is Moya Manzuri Nana Ya Ofebi Bambeli. She is a member of an All-African People's Revolutionary Party and its women's wing, the All-African Women's Revolutionary Union. Sister Manzuri is a longtime activist and coalition builder. Some of her coalition work has included the Black August Los Angeles Coalition, the Pan-African Diaspora Union, six regional representing the African diaspora, preparing to join the African Union. She has done political work and coordinated various tours and campaigns for and with a wide variety of revolutionary organizations, including the Pan-Africanist Congress of Azania, the African Party for Independence of Guinea and Cape Verde, and its youth wing, JAAC, or is it together? The African National Congress, Black Panther Party, Four Directions Indigenous Nations, Eritrean People's Liberation Front, among others. Moya Manzuri Bambeli has coordinated Pan-African Women's Day celebrations in Los Angeles for over 20 years. She has recently developed and serves as administrator of a website focusing on news and views of African women all over the world called Revolutionary African Women, RAW. So please welcome Ms. Moya Manzuri Bambeli. All right, and our next guest would be Suad Abdel Aziz, a Sudanese American lawyer and founder of the human rights advocacy organization Decolonize Sudan. The organization is dedicated to documenting abuses, filing human rights complaints, creating educational materials, and leading advocacy training throughout the U.S. Suad works to support human rights, defend its global south, advising on issues such as surveillance, mass incarceration, and corporate obligations under international human rights laws. Decolonized Sudan operates within communities experiencing neo-colonial oppression and believes in investing in life instead of destruction. The organization also leads public teachings to foster broader solidarity and offers political education for Sudan for a principled advocacy framework. Please welcome Suad. And then last but not least, we'll be welcoming Helen and Asmara, from the National Union of Eritrean Women, which was established in 1979 as a mass organization of Eritrean People's Liberation Front. Today, it operates as an autonomous, non-governmental organization committed to advancing the status and rights of Eritrean women. During Eritrea's liberation struggle, the National Union of Eritrean Women played a crucial role in mobilizing and encouraging women's participation in war efforts. Since independent in 1991, it has continued to empower women by promoting political awareness, literacy programs, credit initiatives, English language education, and vocational training. National Union of Eritrean Women operates through its headquarters in Asmara and regional offices across all 6 zones of Eritrea. With the membership including 200,000 women, its funding comes from membership fees, grants, development projects, and fundraising efforts led by its members. Please welcome Helen and Asmara. Okay, fantastic. So I'm trying to see what would be best for me. I guess, would you all like to basically start with some of the work that you've been doing in your communities and the struggles that you've been facing in your regions or within your organizing work?
Hello, good afternoon. My name is Asmira Jarai. I am an Eritrean American and I lived in the US for the past 25 years. And thank you for welcoming us to this event. The Eritrean woman. How many of you know where Eritrea is? So Eritrea is located in Northern Africa. We're about 6 million by the Red Sea. And we got our independence in 1991 after 30 years war from Ethiopia. So women, when you talk about women in Eritrea, means that they fought in the war. They were mothers, they were fighters, they were everything, and they equally participated through the war. Even after independence, they played a big role, but there is still some challenges. But women organization in Eritrea, it is widely recognized and accepted and equally represented through education and governmental entities. Women are equally represented. In the US, we do have, almost all city has an organization, a women organization, and we have membership and we support the women in Eritrea through fundraising, support, membership, as was listed earlier. It is to be a member of the women organization. It's a right. It's a right because as a woman, we need to participate to make sure that our voice is heard. And we don't have that many challenges right now, but we did before. But through working through the challenges, we are working through them. Education is very widely accepted in Eritrea. Uh, and as well, the, the right of women, healthcare is also well respected. And let's stop with that.
So again, my name is Suad, and I'm coming on behalf of Decolonize Sudan. I'm the founding executive director of Decolonize Sudan, and we are a collective that is Sudanese women-led, and particularly are focused on advocacy and education around Sudan. Um, and we are mostly made up of Sudanese American women, so Sudanese women within the American diaspora. Our organization focuses, especially within these past 2 years, where there's an active genocide and occupation of our country happening. A lot of our work has been focused on advocacy, on providing basic education for non-Sudanese communities about what's going on in Sudan, about who the actors are, and then also convening amongst Sudanese diaspora to strategize around our demands and the demands in particular of those on the ground that and who have been immediately displaced from this genocide and occupation, to how to uplift those demands and how we can achieve those demands for liberation, because we know that we will. We operate from a Pan-African, a feminist, and a anti-imperialist framework, as our name suggests. And so we operate from, Dawn actually had mentioned Sister Asada Shakur, and Asada talks a lot about this the intersection between women's issues and fighting and anti-imperialism, and how the issues around gender-based violence cannot be disattached from the struggle against against imperialism and imperial domination, because they are very deeply interconnected. And one example of this in Sudan has been the issue of female genital mutilation. So this is an issue that in the early 2000s, there was a large, particularly white savior movement that came from the US and some from the UK, that had this approach around FGM, female genital mutilation, that we need to kind of fix these savage women, what they're doing to their girls. And came in with, bringing white missionaries in to Sudan to just reason with, that was the kind of approach, reason with these savage women about, not doing FGM. And of course, that approach didn't work, because the issue of FGM is deeply interconnected with poverty. And with material circumstances of women, so although these large NGOs from the U.S. came in and funneled in millions of dollars, this was the George Clooney movement to save Sudan, funneled in millions to stop FGM and save Sudan from FGM. That didn't put a dent in FGM. What actually has now we're now seeing what actually has ended FGM in much of Sudan is grassroots campaigns of local imams, local religious leaders, and local doctors coming together, coming into communities that they are from, and talking to people about the health, the health risks that come along with this and how this is against our religion actually and why that is and kind of locally convening and having these discussions and also concurrently having this mass literacy campaign to bring literacy to that which like very drastically rose literacy rates in much of the villages in Sudan, and that direct connection between providing material needs for people and gender-based violence was the solution, and that is to me one issue that I always think of when I think of how the fight against gender-based violence is one that is around material needs and not one that is around backwardness or you know these kind of colonial frameworks that that uh, uh, you know have grouped us as African people into and as Black people globally into kind of these racist colonial narratives. So that's something that we do a lot of trainings around, particularly within Sudanese diaspora, and we have in particular youth trainings to talk about anti-imperialist frameworks and how those frameworks can practically come into the strategies that we deploy for our liberation.
Thank you, both of you, for your contribution. I want to say that I first want to give thanks to the National Union of Eritrean Women. I think we should give them a hand. I spent quite a bit of time because the work of a Pan-Africanist, a revolutionary Pan-Africanist, is to not only highlight the importance of Africa, and many of you here may not really understand when you have been stolen 3 centuries ago from your motherland and you're raped, you are separated from your family, and your language and culture has been taken away from you. But this is what us African people in this part of the world have suffered. We are here outside of Africa, not because we decided to come here and become immigrants or refugees. We were stolen. And so that separation has caused a psychosis for African people. We don't know we're African. We actually think America is a thing. And so for us, we are a Frankenstein, and I hate to use that term, but we're an amalgamation of pieces that this doctor put together to try to create who we are. And we have been on a journey to reconstruct ourselves. And so this struggle for Pan-Africanism is to reclaim Africa and to reclaim our African selves, because you can take us out of the Africa, but you can't take the Africa out of us. As you can see in our dance, our culture, and the things we've done for several hundred years to contribute what they call African American culture, jazz, music, art, dance, all of this. Those are expressions of Africa. Even the planting of cotton, rice, sugarcane, beans, everything that contributed to the initial building of this American colony that is installed in indigenous land, this Turtle Island, as the indigenous people call it. It was Africans who brought those seeds with them. It was Africans who brought those experiences with them. We built civilizations long before Europeans came out of the caves, and they knew that because they had traveled throughout Africa. So a lot of what we do is to help African people reclaim who they are through study. And people make fun of study, but if you don't know who you are, once you begin to discover who you really are, you really begin to reclaim yourself instead of rejecting ourselves. What you see a lot of the generations do is to reject their hair, reject their skin color. It's even reached over to the African continent where we're using skin lightening creams. And all of this is a rejection of who we are because the colonizer has told us for centuries so that we work only as a labor for them, that we only idolize them and see them as the master, that we are less than human. And if you read the Constitution for this settler colony, when they brought us, they declared us 3/5 of a human being. And that's how they treated us, less than a human being. So the work that we have done has really been a struggle to reclaim ourselves. But what we learned, particularly from the liberation struggle, and particularly in Eritrea, is the role of women. And I can tell you, when I made my first trip to Africa, in North Africa, and I was complaining about there's no reading for African women, written by African women. And so I was told by a comrade of the New Jewel movement of Grenada. And if you don't know about that movement, please look it up. The United States government uh, performed, in a sense, a coup d'etat on the socialist African movement in South America and overturned this beautiful movement of people that wanted to create a socialist African community for all of the people. And they were assassinated and their leaders then reselected, etc. And so what we learned and what I learned in that trip was to put together books of the African Revolution. And one of the books that I included was the books around the people of Eritrea and the EPLF that helped found the NUEW. And when women began to become a part of the armed struggle, realizing that we had to defeat colonialism and we couldn't have less than 50% win a war, that even if we are being colonized by Ethiopia, by Europe, by Italy, that we had to have 100% on the battlefield. That is an example of a people who want to win a war. And that's the lesson we're still trying to learn, right? So I have to give thanks to NUEW because you taught us. And before independence, where they used to come and have fundraisers, and they would have these fundraisers, and I would go with my sisters from Eritrea and Ethiopia. And they thought I was Eritrean. If I didn't say anything, they thought I was from Ethiopia or Eritrea. And I wouldn't say a word. I'm like, yes, salam, salam, But the unity that I felt in that, and the power of self-confidence and commitment by women who are willing to get on the battlefield and fight the enemy, even with arms, even with whatever they have, was a powerful lesson for me. And so that's the work that we are doing. And it's hard to do that when you don't have the enemy in your face. But today we have ICE in the streets where I live. We have the police coming and snatching our indigenous brothers and sisters, as well as our sisters and brothers from Jamaica, from Haiti, all of these dirty countries that they don't want us to be at, that they're dismissing and again treating us like we're 3/5 of a human being when they've extracted and stolen our resources and our wealth. They're snatching them up. African so-called immigrants are maybe 17%, but they are almost 70% of the focus of their their expulsion strategy. And if you see the list of African countries and Caribbean countries on the list, you wonder what do they have in common. Those are areas that are not bowing down to U.S. imperialism. And so it's this struggle that we bring to our community and to our people. And that's why we work with alliances so that our Indigenous brothers and sisters know your struggle is our struggle. And when we talk about colonialism, guess what? It's going to come in your face. And guess what? It's showing up in ICE as the local police today. And so we have to be reminded, and that's part of the work that the All African People's Revolutionary Party, that's a lot of work, trying to identify who you are, recapture your history of your 300 years, empower yourselves, and most importantly, to empower women, the most colonized through culture of the population, which is women, who are the largest in population. So that's the work we're doing. Thank you.
Thank y'all. It was really good to hear from all three of you, the work that you've been doing. It's important for us to be united and to know about what's happening to our brothers and sisters, whether they're here or across the sea. And so we talked about, lack of access to education materials, our voices not being amplified, healthcare situation issues that we are facing. And so I guess I want to ask you all, how can we activate more African women to be in the movement, and in particular, African youth?
Thank you. It is very important that we bring the youth, African youth. First of all, we need to let them their history. They need to know where they come from. As the word says, to know where you're going, you need to know where you're coming from. So they need to know their history. As Eritrean, we do have communities. We have, it's called Hidri. It's from 9th grade to 12. They learn about, women's struggle, Eritrean history. So, and then after the college, it's a youth organization. So they do learn about women, the Hamare, which is the Eritrean women organization, and others. So we need to teach them the history of our struggle. We also have to be an example. We need to be part of the organization to bring the youth to be part of the organization. And parents it's very important. If I sit at home and tell my kids, like, you need to do this, you need to do this, you need to do that, I need to be, as a mother, I need to be there. I need to be an example. I need to participate. I need to volunteer. I need to monitor, do monitoring. So I need to go out in a community and work. So I, as a parent, as a woman, it's very, because we, the mothers, have very important role. Of course, the fathers too, but we need to lead our kids, our children, our youth. We need to send them home. They need to go home. They need to see the struggle. They need to see the history. They need to look at it. Our kids, we have youth that go every year. They identify a school, or they identify a village that doesn't have education material or anything that they need. So they will raise the money yearly. I'm talking about college students. They will go, the 4 or 5, they will go, they will teach the kids, they will give them. So they will go to the village, they don't hand it to the government, they will actually go give it to them so they can see how those children live. Some of the youth who lives in a village, they don't have access an education system. Some villages doesn't have a school, so we have to make sure that we have school built close to the village or in common area. We need to healthcare. I'm a nurse, so I'm very big in healthcare. So healthcare, we need to make sure that those kids have health. Those children learn. Do you know in Eritrea, in a village, the teacher, you're not only a teacher, you are a first aid. They teach you how to give first aid. You're not only a teacher, you provide a full care. Then you write a referral, a piece of referral. Then you send the child to the zip, from the village to the city, so they can get a care. So it's a whole. We have to see it as a whole. We need to bring them and teach them and monitor them and be example. Thank you.
I want to reflect much of what the sister has been talking about, because usually when we talk about activating women and youth in our struggles, in a lot of settings, that is very superficially discussed about, and it's discussed in a manner that really in a manner that tokenizes women, and wants to is very performative. Having you typically, my experience, a lot of white white-led NGOs that have a couple of Sudanese women involved, so that they can show we have this representation, and we are moving towards women being in processes. But much of what this space understands is that the women don't need to be activated. Like, women are already activated in our struggles, and have been activated. And what women need is material needs, because they are under an imperial fist, And in Sudan, what that has looked like is decades of sanctions from this country, terrorism sanctions imposed on Sudan, that have crippled the economy, along with all of the typical neo-colonial developmental aid leveraging and taking it away and bringing it back, and whenever we fall out of step with U.S. foreign policy, and that is in addition to corruption under our leadership, that is what is keeping our societies extremely impoverished, and therefore women are as the foundations of the societies to keep our communities surviving. They are constantly scrambling to thinking about their daily needs, and the needs of their communities. And so what the interventions always should be focused first on: how can we meet the material needs of these women so that they can put their labor elsewhere. I'm blinking a bit here, but so in Sudan, I'll talk a little bit about the role of women within the past couple of years in Sudan. So in 2019, we had a revolution against a really powerful, 2018 and 2019, a really powerful revolution that was decades coming, against a dictatorship, and with the previous president, Omar al-Bashir. That regime was very corrupt, and had a lot of mismanagement, and many, particularly women and particularly youth, led movements coming into the streets, organizing within resistance committees, and in particular, many of those leaders were killed in that time, in suppression of those movements. And so that was 2018, 2019. And in 2023, so then Omar al-Bashir was ousted in a US-backed coup. And so there was this power vacuum that took place. It was in this moment that the militia, the Rapid Support Forces, came in and destabilized much of the country and seized much of Sudan, destroyed all of the vital infrastructure, has caused the largest displacement in modern history of the Sudanese people, of any peoples, but in Sudan, this was never before seen in our history, caused the largest crisis in modern history, has caused, much of, in particular, now this militia has occupied much of the west of Sudan, because they are planning to take control of, to attempt to try to take control of the west of Sudan, to create their own Western Sudan government, which the people firmly reject. because this militia is a terrorist militia. It's not a force of political governance. The role of women throughout this shifted in this time and the role of youth shifted from those resistance committees, leading those resistance committees. Those resistance committees became models of community and pillars of community survival. Now, much of them are called emergency response rooms, community kitchens, those basic mutual aid groups and places to go for the necessities that no other organization or peoples or governments are providing. We are keeping us safe. We are providing for our survival. And it is women and it is young girls and youth that are leading these efforts. Looking at the role of women and the role of youth is not one that we look at like, okay, we need to activate them. It's like they are activated and they are suffering and they are thinking daily about how are we going to survive and how do we intervene in that. So in Dakota Sudan's work, we of course do particularly fundraising for mutual aid groups, not large organizations, because the large organizations, most of your money is going into overhead, by the way, around Sudan. So donate to grassroots mutual aid groups. Our advocacy work is focused around the narratives that we are using, in particular words that we're using to describe our struggles. As an attorney, I understand that words aren't just ideas. Words have power. Certain words that we use call for certain interventions, and certain words call for others. So training women and youth on basic legal frameworks, on basic organizing frameworks around what do these words mean? What kind of strategy are we calling when we use these words? Is a lot of what our focus is around, and that has very real material impact on the demands that we're calling for, and thus on the what we're seeing on the ground in Sudan. Thank you.
And, I have to, say that a lot of what we see on the news about atrocities, we hear about Ukraine and, what's going on there. But the largest destabilization and famine is in Sudan. And we don't hear about it. We don't see pictures about it. Again, even the media is considering us 3/5 of a human being, not willing to tell our whole stories. And this is what we have to uplift. This is what we have to do. And so we'll talk about what are we doing to bring forth youth, to recruit youth, to raise consciousness. And, one of the things that I have to say that I've been focusing more on myself, not so much the APRP, because Pan-Africanism is global and it includes the total liberation and unification of Africa under scientific socialism. But for women, we have to talk about a cultural revolution. Culture is the container of revolutionary ideas or oppressive ideas. And our culture includes both. We thought, when we talk about the progress since that first All-African Women's Meeting, it's been over 60 years, and it's few nations like Eritrea and Guinea-Bissau that can say our women's union fought not just at independence, but after independence. What they say in Guinea-Bissau, there's two colonialisms. First, there's the external enemy, then there's the internal enemy. It's that second revolution that we have not begun to address, and only women can do it. And so my focus has been through the All African Women's Revolutionary Union that one, we imagine our power because we don't really believe we have power. If you look around the world, there was just a meeting that ended in Japan August 22nd, and it was a meeting of 20 African countries in Japan. Look at Japan. They'll play a role in Africa. They done decided, oh, there must be some resources in Africa, that they're competing with China and Russia, who was there from the beginning to contribute to the African Revolution. But in those 20, I counted 4 women. If you look at the UN and you look at the heads of state, if you look at the African Union, look around the table. How many women do you see? And what we are going around and talking to each other and say, we have the power if we believe in ourselves and we exercise that power. Women must unite. And that's what we've been talking about more and more. We must unite. And I don't want to talk about this comedian, or maybe I'll talk about it later, that said something very, what I thought was profound, but the fact that we will climb over each other to vote for a man that we know is not in our best interest, that's exploiting women, that is doing wrong because we don't want to side with his sister. We must unite as women. We must stand for revolutionary culture, not just African culture. A revolutionary culture, a revolutionary Pan-Africanism, and this is what we're saying to our youth and working with our youth, is one that does not oppress anyone. It only uplifts everyone. And women give birth to everyone. So we certainly have the power to say who lives and who dies from the very beginning. We say women are co-creators with God because in our universe, every human stays within 9 months to live, breathe, see the universe, see the stars, receive through the umbilical cord their water, their oxygen, everything that they have. We are co-creators. We have the power. We just don't see our own power. So what I have done and what we have done in really pushing Pan-African Women's Day is to say, envision Pan-African Women's Day in what you believe we need. I felt in when I began doing it 20-something years ago, there were a lot of open mics, and the young people know what I'm talking about with the open mics. Do the OGs know what an open mic is? Y'all know what an open mic is? But anyway, there was a lot of poetry spots, and there were only men on the mic. And so we decided to have a 2-day Pan-African Women's Day, and the first day would be open mic sisters only. And there were women and young girls who would come, and they didn't have poetry to speak of, but they just wanted to talk about how they felt being on campus, being ignored, not being liked because their hair was natural, that their skin was too dark, that they felt rejected, that maybe they felt heavy or called fat. They just wanted to speak and say how they felt and who they were, and that they felt empowered by being here today and being on the mic. And so the first step is empowering women to be and see your vision as leaders. As our sister said, we have to walk the walk and talk the talk. And so we talk it first and then we walk it, right? I got that turned around. But the bottom line is we got to be what we're talking about. We can't just preach, we have to do. And so what we have done is we have gone to our youth and we go to those spots that maybe, OGs ain't, us older ones, because I'm a grandmother, And so I'll go up in the space with my poetry book, or I'll have my, co-singers with me, and we'll sing a song, and we'll do something. And we'll do it in a revolutionary way to say, hey, we got culture too. We about the struggle too. But we're saying that culture isn't just about empty words when our people are dying on the streets, when our people are suffering all over the world. And so we go to where they have to go. We go where we need to go. We be in those spots where the youth are, we organizing, and we're also trying to empower and inspire youth to be more about conscious action, not just spontaneous action. And so we are organizing youth and we're organizing folks of all ages. I was mentioning to Josie, one of my comrade sisters, her husband, she's from Tanzania, and her husband just died not too long ago. And I said, you know, there's something you can do. Our people need to know Kiswahili. Can you start teaching a class? Because African youth want to learn African languages. They want to learn more about their culture. And so this is a way for her to make a contribution. And so we need to fill every void because through a person, they're only a person through another person. And as our sister said, our teachers are just teachers. They're social workers, they're psychologists, they're counselors, they're medical aid workers. We all play these multiple roles. And so the question is, what is our vision? And do we believe we can take our power? I believe we can. So that's what we're going to do. That's what we're encouraging the next generation is to take your power, especially women, because we are the majority. Why are we not at least 50% of the heads of state when we look around at the AU? Take our power.
Yeah, you know, culture is a really big. The media will lead us to believe that culture is an aesthetics situation, that it's just about feeling good, it's about how you look. And as African people, we know that it's shared beliefs, it's values, it's our customs, our behaviors. And you said something that really stuck out to me about being an example. Mothering and daughtering is this interaction that us as women we do very often. We learn from young people, we learn from, you know, our elders, and it sets us up to be able to have a foundation to get to do mutual aid, you know, to know where to put our funds at, to know like, okay, although we're participants of capitalism and this, that, and the third, we can take our resources and what we have access to and allocate it to our own people. And so one thing that I was thinking about is like, you said we are already activated, which I firmly believe as well. There's so many people, young people, even people I went to school with, where today they're caught up with life struggles, but they're activated. They know that something isn't right and that all over the world we need help. And so I guess, could you guys, before we end, could you maybe give us like a tool that we could use to remind us or get us back immersed in culture or culture building for ourselves as we take on the fight? Because for instance, at my institution of education, you come across a lot of people who get stuck into that tokenism or become elitist and want to become participants of the structure rather than dismantle it. So what are some tools we could use that could bring us back whenever we seem to be getting distracted?
That's a very tough question. Um, Storytelling is very important. You need to hear it from the person who lived through that experience. So this is to all the moms, the parents, storytelling. You need to tell your story. Because if you don't tell your story, somebody else is either going to erase it or they're going to make their own story and they're going to tell it wrong. So storytelling. Another thing is read. You need to read your history. You need to read because there's a lot of African books. Um, there is a lot of books out there. You need to read the books. That's how you learn. And communicate, have a group discussion. Um, you can have a book reading event where you can each can come, a group of youth. You can bring a person who can explain the book or go to book signing event. There's a lot of book signing event. You can go there here. You can hear from the author. You can ask questions. Um, I think reading and telling, storytelling, is the two most important things. As Eritrean, for the past, I would say 20 years, we didn't tell our stories. We didn't know the struggles. We did not. Our kids did not know. But what happened was our story was coming out totally differently. Somebody else was telling it, and they would completely erase it, make their own story. This is where people who actually live still alive, they see their story being told. So we had, you could say, a revolution that we asked, you have to tell your story. You have to. So now we're flooded with books, and we have to buy books. No YouTubes. You actually have to buy the book and read it because you can pass it on to your children, or you can pass it on to your friends or your sister. So uh, a quick way, and you're also supporting the person who's writing the book. So I would, the two things that still stand out: the storytelling and reading. Thank you.
Yeah, that's a really important question. And I really appreciate your answer, especially around the storytelling and telling our stories and telling the stories of our ancestors, everyone who's coming with us and before us. That's so important. I would also say, like, find for particularly for youth, like, find an organization, convene with your people, convene with like-minded, quote unquote radicals, and stay in those spaces. Don't get wrapped up in the elitism, in what you're talking about, because it's really easy to get wrapped up in that if you're around those people often, because that's what they'll keep pushing on you. But that's what success means. Find your people, convene, organize with them, and organize and imagine with them. Imagine beyond what is currently existing, because y'all's imagination, like, that's the future. Like, that's literally it. Like, radical youth imagining, like, that's y'all's imagination is what's going to be reality. I'm firm on that. I know that. And so continue to do that. Continue to hold your faith in that, and your power in that, because you are the most powerful in doing that. So continue what you're doing. Continue that. Yeah, and try to find organizations, especially like learning from elders, learning from those before you, or at least finding, about reading from all of the books and all of the education that our elders have passed on to us. We need to maintain those stories, those strategies, and keep it pushing from there.
I just thinking both of you have repeated organization, which is something that there's no one problem that can't be fixed through organization. It's just that simple. But we have to have that commitment. And I think that we have to see ourselves tied to that solution. And that's the science of it, and that reminds me of two stories. One, when I think about, I've been studying Mbuya Nehanda in Zimbabwe, and she was a spirit guide, a spirit woman. And in our communities, we have these people who commune with the ancestors. They tell, and they are, invoked with the spirit, and they tell us, what may be our next move to do. And Mbuya Nehanda saw the colonial enemy, and knew that they stealing their land and having them labor for them was wrong. And so she and the other spirit guides in the area in the 1800s, they helped create this resistance, which they call the first Shimarenga. and they attacked the British settlers, those that were coming to steal the land and to steal the resources, the first coming of the Europeans in Southern Africa. And so one European was killed, and so for that, they were rounding up everyone, and they pulled together and Mbuya Nehanda and Sekunda Hakali, and they were going to line them up inside of a firing squad. And in front of the people, they said, "Don't you want to be baptized first before we execute you? Because we're going to execute you." And she said, "No, I don't need anybody's foreign religion. I believe in my people and I believe in my culture." Uh, and so they said, "Well, where's your spirit guides now? You're alone now." And she said, "You could kill me now, but my bones will rise again." And 60, 70 years later, the second Shimarenga came, and the youth, they consulted the spirit guides because Mbuya Nehanda was then possessed by others. And they consulted them and they waged a war that they won for the independence of Zimbabwe. And so her bones did rise again. Her spirit did rise again. It was a commitment. And so that second part is to say, know who you are. Spend some time knowing your culture and knowing your people. You'll be surprised the inspiration that you get from that. Oftentimes, even within our own movement, there are times where we feel broken down, attacked. People will not agree with us, or things just won't go right. But you go inside and you seek that guidance. And I recommend doing it daily, the chaos that we live through now, every day, that you tap in to know who you really are as a person. Because people who say they are, people who wear the labels and the tags, they may not be walking the walk. They're just talking the talk. So that's an important lesson. The second and last story is one of our nieces in the movement, Dr. Nia Imari, just came up with this book called Painting the Cosmos. And it just struck me, the first chapter I'm reading, and she was one of our young pioneers. Our children, when we had all of these children during the 70s and 80s and 90s, we had what Nkrumah had created in Ghana, the Young Pioneers. So we had our young pioneers, and so they were trained and educated, and we played with them, but we would teach them their history and all of this. And so Nia has come up with this thing. Well, now she's a astrological, or should I say an astronomer. She's a doctor of astronomy. And she wrote this book called Painting the Cosmos because she's a phenomenal painter as well. And she has a story at the beginning that talks about the early pharaohs that created the Great Sphinx, and how these structures were the tallest. The Great Sphinx was the tallest human-made structure on Earth. That you could see it from the satellites. It was that tall. And it wasn't until the emperor and the imperialist pirate Napoleon Bonaparte came into Egypt, and he was just shocked to see, Africans had created this thing, and he tried to break off the Sphinx's nose, and the Great Pyramid just irked him. And so when he went back to France, he commissioned that the Eiffel Tower be built, and it's just a little taller than the Great Sphinx. But the chambers that these pharaohs had built, that their tombs would be diametrically pointing to the North Star. And at that time, the North Star, and again, we know that our people created science, astronomy, even the science of agriculture because of the flow of the Nile. All of these things is evidence of the science that we mastered. Well, these tombs directly pointing to the North Star, at the time it was Thurban. And in 20,000 years from now, it'll be Thurbin. The exactness of science, knowing who you are and who your people are, is a science as well. Knowing what we have done and what we can do with organization is a science. And so know the science of who you are.
Well, thank you all for these tips. And actually using storytelling whenever you're telling us about, these tools that we can use. And so, yeah, I'm just so grateful to have been here and to hear from you all and to share this moment with you. And so, can everybody please give them a round of applause? Yeah, and with that, we'll give everybody a quick 10-minute break. Feel free to stretch, get some chai.
Yeah.
Some chai. We have some other delicious snacks over there that you can dig into. And then after that, we'll break into group discussion.
Thank you. That'd be nice. Oh, so many like gems. Really holding on to those. Thank you so much. Thank you. It was such a pleasure to be on this here. I would love to. The other parts not only oh, these are friends. Oh, we keep running it over. We have millions in this case. It's 16 million. It's